like I tell my clients, if you're literally trying to do life with this person and you can't be vulnerable with them, who can you be vulnerable with then? You lay next to them every single night.
Man, that's real. Let's say somebody's tuning in and they never heard of attachment styles before. How would you break that down to them?
So secure is the attachment style that we all want to have. These all start in our childhood, but that means someone with a secure attachment has had a very responsive caregiver.
Yes.
Anxious is what I had, and that is you get a very, very inconsistent parent. You walk on eggshells. That creates clinginess. That creates worth issues. That creates, don't leave me, love me. I'll show you I can do better. I'm worth you staying here. I'm worth giving another chance. Right. Avoidant is you're just not addressing anything. You're avoiding all type of problem because your homeostasis is too high. And then when you meet normal down here at a 50, absolutely not, because you've never been down here. So they create chaos in situations to bring them back up to 80 degrees where they feel comfortable.
Because there's like a fourth one too, like this.
Disorganized, it's the push-pull dynamic. I want to be loved, and also I can't let you get too close because I don't trust it all the way. It's a mixture of both.
You feel like you find it hard to date as a therapist, you know?
Yes. I don't even say it no more. I say I'm in the mental health field. I work in the mental health field.
There we go. Yeah, smart. Mm-hmm. Fully Connected. Yeah. Welcome back to the Fully Connected podcast, your go-to destination for inspirational conversations to help you become your greatest version. I am your host, Chris Jones, licensed therapist and owner of Fully Connected Counseling. Today we got another therapist on the show. All right. She is the licensed marriage family therapist, LMFT. She is the owner of Healing and Harmony LLC, where she helps her clients to transform their relationships, right, by transparent conversations to be able to help them become their greatest version as well. All right. And she's right here with us. She was studying for her clinical exam. When this episode airs, she's going to probably be past the exam. Yes. So we're going to put that into existence. Yes. I remember how it was studying for the clinical. I'm not even going to lie, man. It took me 5 times.
You know, thank you for the authenticity. We talked before. I value authenticity, and people just act like it's actually really hard. Research shows that in my program, they were telling me that when any Black person or person of color takes a large standardized test, ACT, SAT, we never usually pass the first time. And I think listen. What? Like, it was like, maybe, I cannot remember what the exact statistic was, but it was it was over 50% didn't pass the first time.
Are you serious?
Yes.
What's up with that?
Yes, for real. And then I think about my cohort and every Black person in my cohort who took the exam and what our results were and what that looked like, or how to, and I was like, y'all don't want to do nothing about these skewed results? Like, how do we? Yeah. So listen, I appreciate that. And if for whatever reason it doesn't happen this time, it will happen the next time. And I'm just going to keep speaking nothing but positivity.
So some people may not know, but you were on the podcast with Big Sam and myself, and we had that conversation.
Yes.
And I remember in the conversation you brought up something about code switching, and I wanted to kind of go a little bit into that as well. Yeah. About code switching and like let people know what that is and like why do you feel like it might be necessary as a Black woman?
I feel like it can be necessary because there's not too many spaces that I can walk in and just be. I have to monitor what my AAVE looks like, which is African American Vernacular English. I have to monitor my tone, how I say certain things. My hair. I love, my friends like to call me a blonde bombshell because I love blonde. Blonde looks, it's just my thing. It's my go-to. But I would never be able to take like business photo shoot pictures with this, or I have to make sure that it's sleek. You know,
can't take business professional photos with that?
I feel like, so this is, again, we talk about authenticity. I feel like they would look at that, and I would love that they get to see the most authentic version of me. Right. And I also have to be cognizant that might also steer people away.
Okay.
But I also, if I want to follow that up with, I don't necessarily know that if it does steer them away, that they're my target audience or target market anyway.
Bingo. You got to be yourself.
Yes.
And if people don't like that, then they're not your ideal client anyway.
Listen, and my clients love me. Like, man, what you see is what you get with me.
Man, I wanted to talk about that because I feel like, you know, even like when I see like your social media and whatnot, like you're just yourself, right?
Yes.
You're, you know, just out there posting whatever you want to post.
Yes.
And like, if you could talk about that, because I know like even like some colleagues, right, or some people in the field feel kind of like, I don't want to post this because what other people are going to say. But it seems like you have zero fear of that. You'll go ahead and post whatever you want. Like you living your life.
Absolutely, because that also, I don't run my business page, but if people end up finding me or it's connected to my personal, they also know one of the first things I tell my clients when they come into my room anyway is I'm not willing to ask my clients to do anything that I'm unwilling to do.
Yes.
So if I value authenticity and transparency, you will get that with me with boundaries. 100%. With boundaries for sure. And I also believe in self-care. I'm a very extroverted person too, though.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So,
it was a Gemini, right?
Yeah.
Man, yeah, yes. Geminis.
I love just exploring, doing new things, being creative. So I feel like that also I think it contributes to our therapeutic alliance in a way if they did see that part of me. But then also when I'm in session, I'm sitting like this too in my big comfy chair.
Oh, that's dope.
And I tell them to get comfy. Like they'll take their shoes off. I try to make it so it doesn't feel like therapy, but we're still doing the concepts, the work. We're having the hard conversations and promoting authenticity. Don't come in here expecting me to have some. And to be writing and to doing all of the things.
Man, that clipboard scares people. I noticed that. I threw the clipboard away.
Listen, and I almost got like three to five new clipboards because I have them do like in-session activities and stuff like that.
Right.
And it just feels so informal. Like it feels formal, and I want it to feel informal. So I literally have them write on like any kind of notebooks that I have.
Right, for sure, something fun, right?
Yes, and I just literally make it your own.
Because you said you see 18 and up, right? Was there a time when you saw kids?
Never.
No,
never. And I didn't even see them. Oh, I did. In my program, I did. I think the youngest I ever saw was 14.
Got you.
14.
And I wanted to talk about like what made you decide to do private pay only? Because you used to see insurance, right?
No, I do. I still see insurance.
You see insurance? Okay. I thought you were just doing cash only.
Eventually, I definitely do want to do.
Why?
I feel like insurance, they're really nosy. They have these audits that they do when they want to see certain things in my client's file. What's their diagnosis? What's their treatment plan? I don't feel like that. Therapy is literally all about confidentiality. So why would I share some of the most vulnerable things and what they want to work on? How do you know they want you to know that? And if they do get access to this diagnosis or what a book says that they have per se, how do I know that diagnosis do follow people? So if it gets into the wrong hands, their employer, whomever else, certain diagnoses come with a stigma. Let somebody tell you, I have borderline personality disorder. A lot of people are going to be like, and they don't even know, like, instead of saying and putting a diagnosis on someone, it's I struggle with, or sometimes I have symptoms of, because the reality is if anyone has experienced any form of abandonment, rejection, trauma, attachment, anything, you're going to exhibit some of those symptoms and some of those criteria. But what the DSM does not take into consideration is the systemic thinking, the patterns. What does their social life look like? Their gender, their socioeconomic class,
so true.
All of that. So I don't want to do that. And then I feel like with insurance, because they cap it, you trying to tell me what I'm worth. If I want to charge $250 for an intake and you only reimburse
they're like, nah, you're not about to do all that.
Listen, and you only want to reimburse me $200, I'm tired of writing off. So the flip side of that and not taking insurance is I'm for my people. I'm for the culture. And so the flip side of not taking insurance is if anybody doesn't have the ability, everybody just doesn't have extra cash flow sitting around to pay for therapy. I do think therapy is needed and it's important, and we should be treated just as going to get your women's exam, men's exam. You should go get your wellness. That should be a thing. But if I don't take insurance, then there's a whole plethora and a whole side of people that won't get to see me. Right. And that's not fair, because they need help. They want to process, they want to grieve, they want to just have somebody to talk to, and they should be able to talk to somebody who looks like them, who's not going to judge them, and get the help that they need. Absolutely.
And I know you said you're kind of like mostly seeing like couples, right? Now I stopped seeing couples because I was getting stressed out a little bit.
What?
But I do have a few, but I'm definitely very selective of who I bring on, because some couples I'm just like, all right, like.
So what made you stop? Like, what made you kind of pull back?
They wouldn't be in their own therapy. Yeah. So it would just kind of feel like they wouldn't understand how couples therapy worked. They had never been in their own individual therapy at times. And so I was like, let me pull back a little bit. And I referred a couple of people over to you, actually. But can you tell me a little bit, like, if somebody's watching right now and they're in a relationship and it may not be the healthiest, is there anything they can learn, from your years of working with couples? And what do you see when you're working with these couples? What are some of the main issues people are having?
Lack of intimacy, lack of connection, which I would say displays itself. A lot of people come in, it's communication. It's so much more than communication. And it always brings me back to the term of neuroplasticity and implicit memory. Have you ever gotten off work and, you just drive home, you take the same route home every single time?
Right.
You just float in the driveway and you're like, how did I get here? Well, that's ingrained. That's a neural network that's ingrained. So if my couples come in and they're struggling with stonewalling, they're struggling with being passive aggressive, they're struggling with lack of vulnerability and expression of emotions, I am going to wonder what the ages of 0 to 7 look like specifically for them. Okay. I'm going to wonder and be curious about what were they exposed to, what was modeled, what was taught to them, because during that time, the brain is operating rapidly. We're learning and unlearning behaviors at a rapid pace. But after the age of 7, that whole process of neuroplasticity decreases by about 55%, I believe. So I'm going to say they stuck with it, but you
said 55%.
Yes, it decreases by 55%. So that's a little less than half, obviously. So you are going to have to put in some major work. But if we grow up being told, suck it up, it don't matter, or not getting hugs, not getting affection, not really being taught how to effectively communicate, and that we turn into these grown humans, and now we're slamming doors, we're cussing people out, we're doing all of this unhealthy behavior. We don't know how, why. We've just always done it this way.
It's muscle memory.
Listen, and now we got to put in the work overtime to unlearn everything, but it's so ingrained and it's so embedded in us. So I would challenge them to do they know where their communication styles come from? Is the communication style that they have right now, does that make them feel safe? If so, okay, I can absolutely understand that. But did those rules that they have in place, did that keep you safe in another season? And we just brought it over to the season right now.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Are they helpful in this season? Are these things that we can throw out?
Right. Coping mechanisms they learned when they were in a maybe traumatic situation in the past.
And defense mechanism. I'm studying for this test, and I literally.
So you're fresh of all the.
But there's this term, a defense mechanism called rationalization.
Ooh.
Let's
talk about that.
Listen, I was talking to my best friend, and I remember like a couple months ago, we were like bickering and going back and forth, and she was like, Gabby, every time you do you always. And I was like, So I'm studying for this exam, and then rationalization comes up.
Yeah, man.
And I call her and I'm like, oh my gosh, do you remember when we were arguing and you said, I always do A, B, and C, or I always stick up for somebody to make the tension less, or whatever, side with somebody else. And she was like, yeah. I said, girl, there's a term for that. It's called rationalization. And I had forgot all about it. But essentially, it's you justifying the
Tell 'em.
action
Yeah.
because it's too much anxiety and it's too much tension and you can't sit with that. So when I'm saying, oh, it's okay, like he didn't mean it like that, or she didn't mean it like that, or in his defense was the word that, or in her defense was like the term. She was like, you always say in somebody's defense.
Right.
And it's because I could not sit with the anxiety or the tension or the what's the term I'm looking for? Internal feelings and thoughts.
Yes.
And I was just like, I sat on that couch and I was looking at that term and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up for today.
Man, I printed off some of the defense mechanisms and had clients read it to be like, hey, I think, like, which one of these sound like you?
Projection.
Oh,
people do
projection.
that.
Yes. Because rationalization, I remember I had a client once, he got stood up on a date and he tried to rationalize like, she wasn't really my type anyway.
Yes.
But I'm just like, you were talking about her.
Yes.
This don't really line up. But now he could really rationalize why it wasn't going to work. I'm just like, okay, you don't want to sit with the anxiety that he got stood up. And I mean, yeah.
Rejection.
Nobody wants to feel that.
All of that.
Intellectualization. Have you heard of that one? That's another defense mechanism. So that's like, I have a client.
I think that is on my list actually.
Yeah, he got diagnosed with chemo, and he could talk about all like the facts of like the cancer and this and that, but not really deal with the emotion. So like you can sometimes see like people are very intelligent. They can just kind of really just look at all the data and
I see that with my height. Do you have clients that are like higher earners or like super established and esteemed? And it's not that. It's not. I don't think it's that. And have in their mind have all of the answers and they try. Yeah,
it can be kind of like that as well because it's just like, hey, like I had a client and the dad. He's like, I don't understand why. The problem is we have a big house, we have this, we have that, you have a nice car. But I mean, it's just, there's a lot of different defense mechanisms people do because, most human behavior comes from the desire to escape discomfort. Nobody wants to sit with that anxiety.
It's crazy to think about what's in our subconscious and we naturally just do those things. Like, had she not said anything to me about it, I probably would have just kept on. And then I had to sit and I was like, what was so uncomfortable about our interaction and what was so uncomfortable about what she was saying to me.
Wow.
That is where people don't want to go. That is where people shy away from. That's why there's no second order change. And we're okay with making the temporary surface level changes. But
the Band-Aids.
And then what happens with eventually get in the shower, the Band-Aid gonna fall right off. Because so what am I really? So I had to sit with that and I was like, yes. That's
the difficult part.
Yes.
So how did you get into your therapy journey there?
Like being a therapist?
Yeah. How did you get to becoming a therapist? Because wasn't there a time when you were working at Twin Peaks?
Yes, in
like,
undergrad.
Man, because I was which one were you at? Were you at the East one? Man, because this was a question I'm going to ask Gabby, if it's all right. I was like, man, I swear she was working at Twin Peaks.
I worked
From Twin Peaks to therapy. That's going to be the title. That's the thumbnail right there.
I worked at Hooters for a little bit as well. So in undergrad, I was living in Omaha. I moved to Wichita in 2015, and
okay, gotcha.
I moved out here with my best friend, and I finished my bachelor's out here from Wichita State. She ended up moving back about a year after we got out here, so she went home in 2016. But I remember sitting in a class at my old school, University of Nebraska, Omaha, and it was a sexual education class.
Right.
But the professor, she had brought in like sex toys. She had brought in all of these different things and was passing them around the class and like helping people like process in class sexual issues and talking about the uncomfortable things related to sex. And I was like, I absolutely want to go into sex therapy. And so started doing some work. And then I think at the time my major was like nursing and I couldn't pass anatomy. Scratch that. Or no, it was pre-med. I wanted to be an OBGYN. Came down to nursing. And then I was like, okay, no. And then I went to public health. And then from public health, I was like, what am I going to do with this? And girl, you everywhere. And so really just not having a direct path. And my mentor, she was a social worker. And so I got on the path of social work. I had like 2 or 3 good semesters under my belt. And I was like, I'm transferring. I was so distracted And I realized that I was leveling up, but I could not stay in that environment. So I was like, let's transfer. I'm going to transfer. I talked my best friend into coming. Like, we was just really bossing our lives up, and got out here in 2015, stayed with social work, got into the social work program at WSU. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm done. Like, what next? Because I was working after I graduated, I was working at St. Francis as a case manager.
Man, what year were you there? Oh, God.
I was there 2017.
No way.
2017.
You were there 2017?
Till 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was there was it 2016? I think it was 2016 to like 2018 or so.
What department? Wait, no. What team were you on?
Donese.
What? I was on team 6. No.
Are you serious?
No way.
Hold on, who was on team 6? Was that
Lavanna?
Yeah, right across the hall.
Yes.
With Brittany?
Yes. No way. How did I not know? This is crazy.
You know Levita?
Yes.
That was my partner.
What?
Tasha, remember Tasha?
Yes. Meredith was my supervisor.
No way. That's crazy, Gabby. You must have been busy.
Wow. Listen.
You must have been busy.
I had a caseload of, it was unthinkable. But I knew I could not do that for the rest of my life. The on-call.
Oh my God.
Do you not remember all the kids terrorizing the office?
Oh my gosh.
When a kid hit me with a 2x4, I knew it was a wrap.
Are you serious?
Yes. In the kid zone. Yes. I was done.
How did you respond? What?
I didn't have the coping skills that I have now. I definitely was like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I know I obviously didn't hit them or put my hands on them, but I was like, what is wrong? What is wrong with you? Why would you think that's okay? Like, you listen. Wow. And then I think from there, I was just like, I can't do this. I need to level. Man. What am I going to do?
Right.
From there, I applied to get an MSW.
Okay.
And I was.
He's about to come and switch teams.
Yeah, no. I was waitlisted I applied at like USF, University of South Florida in Tampa. I applied at Baylor, and then I applied at Wichita State. Wichita State just straight up told me no, even though I had graduated from their Bachelor of Social Work program.
They denied me too. Don't worry.
What?
They didn't. They picked my friend, and I had better grades than him. But it is what it is.
I look at my transcript, and I was like, listen. So and
my friend was black, so it wasn't like hey, like you know what I mean. So I was just like, what it is. So I went to Newman.
I look back, and I'm like, it was just literally God's no is like a redirection.
Exactly.
So I remember getting a call from friends, and they were like, we have this marriage and family therapy program, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. So I went in, I submitted all my application stuff. They actually called me for an interview, and I went in. It was a group interview.
You was over there with Michael, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. He was my group supervisor. Like, pretty much a really good chunk of the time I was in the program. But I went for the interview. It was a group interview. And I remember they had us in a room. You know those rooms where they have the mirrors, like the mirrors that you can't see.
Therapy kind of rooms. Yeah,
but you can't see on the other side.
Two-way mirrors.
Yep. And you were in there with a group of people, and they said if somebody was interviewing you, what would you say about yourself? And you had to answer that question. Everybody was sitting there all timid and they didn't have anything to say. And I was like, well, I guess I'll start. I would say Gabrielle is, and you're just talking third person. And so did that, had to write a short paper. And then they said they would let us know within a week. I didn't check my email for a week. And when I finally checked it, they actually had emailed me my acceptance to the program the next day.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wow,
that's crazy.
Immediate yes is what it was. And I was just like, thank you, God. But I remember one of my colleagues now, but my cohort member, shout out to Robert. I remember him telling me, he was like, I didn't know what it was going to be like. He said, but when it was time to rank who was going to excel in this program, like you were at the top of my list because I was people love my spunk, my personality, my authenticity.
There we go. And that's that word again.
Yeah. And he was like, he put me down. He was like, I didn't know how it was going to be or if you were what it was going to look like. But he said, I definitely put that we would work well together and you would excel. And
that's awesome. It's awesome. Did you know you were going to excel like this far when you were back there at Hooters and Twin Peaks?
No, I don't even think I knew what I wanted to do like completely. I knew I wanted to help people.
What do you think the psychology is like of just like working at a place like that as a woman? You know, I've always been curious to ask, you know, someone who works in those professions, you know?
At that time, I needed money, obviously. I was working 2 part-time jobs. I worked at Sprint and Twin Peaks.
Sprint, yeah.
So
man.
completely different.
It's crazy. There's no more Sprint.
But I remember working one shift and I was like, dang, these girls, they make money. I got into the lifestyle, what we'll say.
Right.
And it came with a lot of like flirting, difficult advances, like people wanting you to do additional things for additional money, which I was never going to do.
Right.
And I think it really took a hit on my self-esteem at that time too, because when we came into work, if you were not done, your makeup, if your hair wasn't like it's white, obviously it's like a white based establishment. If your hair wasn't teased, you didn't have glitter, your makeup wasn't super extensive,
really?
And dramatic. They ranked us though each shift.
Are you serious?
Every shift we came in, we were ranked, and whoever had the lowest ranking had to stay and close.
Dang.
Yes.
It's like that.
Yes. So
every day they would rank you.
Yes.
Like
and then
1 to 10 or something?
Yes.
No way.
Yes. And like we had to wear those itty bitty shorts, we had to wear Uggs, and we had to have like these rambunctious belts.
Who's ranking you?
The managers on duty.
Mostly guys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about it. I did not know it was going down like that.
The best makeup, who's dramatic, who's looking the part. And I wasn't doing that. I'm black. You're not teasing my hair. It's going bye. But we're not teasing my hair. And so, but I remember doing my makeup extensively. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I came to work one day and I had like a low ranking, and I actually didn't care, but I stayed and I closed. But I literally remember walking out of my closing shift, I think it was like $700. And I was like, I'll close. I don't care about closing at this point because people I can talk, and it's slow by the time that people were winding down. So
right.
Then you have regulars who come in on a regular basis, but people would start paying me to close. I'll give you $40 extra to close. Absolutely. Even if I was ranked higher that day and I didn't have to, pay me and I'll close.
So why didn't they rank it based on like how many tips you get or the customer service?
Right.
Like,
I have no idea.
It's just like how you look.
Hence, and it's even deeper because it's like, I think about, it impacted my confidence and self-esteem. And I also think about to what extent. I think, was I ever not leaving the house on purpose without wearing makeup because I didn't want nobody to see me without it? Or I wasn't leaving the house without my hair done or without whatever outfit.
Right.
Like
very self-conscious.
Yeah, we were exposed. They talked about how we looked in our uniform. If our thigh wasn't smooth, or if this was showing, or if you got a little roll here or a little roll there.
Will they touch?
No.
Okay, that would be weird. If like
very weird.
It'd be very weird because some of those guys, the managers are.
Listen, and the things these women did outside of work is I'm not doing that. There was women like literally driving new cars, getting things paid for, getting whole apartments paid for, and I
had a client like that. I had a client like that, and she was making money, but it's like, hey, like.
My pastor always tells us, if you compromise to get it, you're going to have to compromise to keep it.
Ooh.
I'm not willing to do that. So.
That's when you left?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Absolutely. And then, I don't know if I left or they fired me. Either one, I got up out of there. And I remember I was like, I'm going to school. Like,
right. You got a future.
What are you? You're not going to be here. And it's crazy because I'll go sometimes and some of those same girls still work there. I'm 30 now.
Man, it seems like to me, like when I would like go, you know, most of my experiences seemed like some of the women had a lot of trauma. Like when they would like open up, they would just naturally open up, you know, and I wouldn't even tell them what I do, but it felt kind of like therapy. So I just would let them just talk. But it seemed like to me, like a lot of it was a lot of trauma. I don't know if you would agree with that working there.
I would say it is trauma. And also, it's a very man-based establishment. So it's easy to listen. And if you do have trauma specifically around attachment or rejection or abandonment, and you have men in there being thirsty, gawking over you, it's going to fill temporarily that need, that void, that esteem. It's going to esteem you to a certain extent because they're being thirsty.
Would you say... if somebody is a waiter, and I'll say this last and we can move to a different topic, but if there's a female who's a waiter at, like, let's say a place like Twin Peaks, can she sustain like a relationship outside of that? Would that be healthy in your own opinion as a therapist?
I did at the time. Yeah. I think that goes back to boundaries. I don't know that I know that actually my boundaries weren't as firm and assertive as they are today. And also, I think the person that I was dating at the time knew I wasn't going to be on no foolery.
He was secure in himself.
Yes, absolutely. And he was much older too. So I said much. He was like 7 years older at the time. Okay, yeah. So 6-7 years, something of the sort. But yeah, he would come in there and visit sometimes too and just eat. But I could absolutely see it being a daddy issue thing with women working there for sure. And then entertaining super duper older men or father figure type of men because they're lacking or didn't receive in certain areas.
Definitely. So you said earlier too about boundaries. Like, how did you get to be able to have stronger boundaries today, you know?
I'm going to credit that to my amazing therapist. Her name's Brandy. She's licensed in Kansas, y'all. A little shameless plug.
Louder Milk.
Yes.
Man, Brandy's super dope.
Listen.
She taught me about the taxes and everything when I was starting. Yeah.
That is my girl. I love her down.
Why did she leave?
I don't know. I didn't even, first of all, let's talk about how I didn't even know she was. She was like, I'm moving next week. And I was like, huh? And so, what are you talking? And I called her so quick, but just life taking us in different directions and things like that. But she really taught me about boundaries and rules and how they provide safety in the things that have happened in my life to me, essentially because I lacked boundaries. Yes, other people played a part in them, and that doesn't excuse the things that have happened or occurred. Sure. And if I knew who I was, and if I knew my values and what I stood on and the things that provided me safety and that I didn't like back then, I probably wouldn't have went through a lot of the things that I did. Wow. So
just by telling people no.
Listen, and leaving the first time.
Because so many people see no as, bad.
Yeah, and it's not a thing. Right. It's a no for right now. And I think about just one of my best friends. I texted her the other day and I was like, I miss you. And she was like, I miss you too, friend. I want to see you soon, but I know you're locked in. Let me know when we can get together. Because she had been wanting to hang out and I had been wanting to hang out, and I couldn't. I have to stay focused. And that response that I got from her was a respecting of my boundaries. And those are the type of people that I need to have and I have now in my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. So when you are counseling like the couples, right? And you're trying to help them, do you like break down like their attachment styles like before you guys get started and whatnot?
Not before. It'll usually be in the middle of like a session or something. Right. I have a couple. They'll say, well, we just want to talk, and I just want to talk about it, and he'll just walk away from me, or he'll just leave, and I'll feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know if he's coming back, what's going to happen. And I'll be like, okay, so what do? I'm calling him, I'm blowing up his phone, or he's not responding to me, or vice versa, whichever partner it is. And I just kind of sit there and I just smile and I go, have we heard of attachment styles?
Oh, right. And they're like, huh?
Yeah. And then I'm like, it sounds like we're very anxious, or it sounds like we are trying to learn how to self-soothe. And then I'll ask questions such as, do you feel like every relationship, or every argument, every difficulty is going to be the end?
Right.
What keeps you secure? How do you know your partner's secure place? If they don't want to, if they're avoidant, do you think conversation means confrontation?
Let's say somebody's tuning in and they never heard of attachment styles before. Like, how would you break that down to them?
So secure is the attachment style that we all want to have. It stems these all start in our childhood, but that means someone with a secure attachment has had a very responsive caregiver. Their parent could drop them off somewhere, they could leave, they're going to be okay. They might fuss a little bit, but they know and they're secure that their caregiver is coming back to get them. They're excited to see their caregiver.
Yes.
Anxious is what I had, and that is you get a very, very inconsistent parent. Sometimes your parent messing with you, sometimes you're not.
Okay.
You walk on eggshells. You don't know what version of them you're going to get, and so that creates clinginess. That creates worth issues. That creates love. Don't leave me. Love me. I'll show you I can do better. I'm worth you staying here. I'm worth giving another chance.
Right. It's kind of more of that fear of abandonment, more of the anxious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Avoidant is completely getting unmet needs. You're just not addressing anything. You're avoiding all type of problem because your homeostasis is too high. It's almost like when I tell my clients, it looks like you're used to operating at 80 degrees. It's hot up there. And then when you meet normal down here at a 50, you're down here, you're like, absolutely not, because you've never been down here.
Right, you're not comfortable.
So they create chaos in situations to bring them back up to 80 degrees where they feel comfortable.
The avoidant types?
Mm-hmm. Most of the time.
And then so the
I
fourth
think anxious can do it too, though.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. And then like, because there's like a fourth one too, like this.
Disorganized.
I always get confused with that one. Like when I would take the test, like I would always mess up on the fourth one. Like
disorganized shows up in my own life today. Okay. It's lit, and I thought I'm over here thinking I'm secure. Disorganized is the it's the push pull dynamic. Like,
is that what it is? Yeah.
Yes, it's the I want to be loved. I want to experience healthiness. I know that I'm capable of, and also I can't let you get too close because I don't know what it's about. I don't trust it all the way.
Yeah. See, I always thought that was the avoidant, but it's kind of like it's a
mixture of both.
Okay, there we go.
That's
a mixture of anxious and avoidant. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. So what would you say if somebody's like that? Like, do you see a lot of clients like in your practice more with anxious type, more of that avoidant type? Like,
I would say it's a balance. And with couples, oftentimes we see the pursuer distancer dynamic. One person, the anxious partner, constantly pursuing during conflict and wanting to heal things or fix things, repair things. And the other one's like, nope, not right now. I'm cool. Let's not. We can sweep it under the rug. Like once it's been the next day, I don't want to talk about it. But all that does is stew for the anxious partner.
Right.
But what I would tell somebody struggling with anxious attachment specifically is learning how to self-soothe is going to be monumental, because if you and your partner are arguing or there's a disagreement and they just leave, one, I'm going to ask, what boundaries or rules do you have in place to know that this is not going to be the end of the relationship, and you having a set and allotted time to come back and discuss what's going on, and be okay with them leaving. Because that's not a reflection of you. That's how they cool down. You want them to respect how you are handling and trying to understand the problem. Do they get that same grace to do so?
Right.
It's a balance. It's a collaborative effort.
Wow.
And so learning how to self-soothe, go do something you like. Go read a book. Go for a walk. If you're me, I am probably going to listen to music. I am probably going to go sit outside somewhere and get some vitamin D. My self-soothing also looks like calling one of my friends. Body doubling with my mom on the phone, just doing something to keep my mind off of that. And once I mastered self-soothing, and I say mastered, but I'm still human. So there's times where I'm like, and I can find it. If I realize myself or I see myself like you're being anxious right now for whatever reason, grounding. There's a pressure point right here in our hands.
It kind of helps with like sinuses, right?
Mm-hmm. And it also helps with, I do it with when I do EMDR. This is one of the breathing techniques. You're going to break
that down, the EMDR stuff later.
I will. But if you press on this like firmly and you massage it and you take, and you do that consistently, it's literally bringing you back to your homeostasis.
Man, absolutely.
And being able to, you should not be able to, nothing should have the ability to break you from your core or get you off your balance. That's awesome, to say. Man.
Because I feel like sometimes people just think, oh, it's like women are more anxious or men are like this, but it really is just based on the attachment type. Because you could be a male,
very anxious. Yes, and he was anxious because his wife had cheated on him, and he would say, looking back, he would say things like, I don't have any life outside of you. If I can't be next to you, then I don't want to live.
Do you think like some women like will think like of a man with an anxious attachment type would be like controlling almost, but maybe it's just anxious attachment?
Absolutely. Controlling, clingy, all of those things. And I think
that's a turnoff for a lot of women.
Definitely is.
Because isn't it crazy? Because see, if a guy is dating a woman with anxious attachment, it's kind of like, all right,
it's normalized to a sense. Like I want to be in your skin,
right? But
you see so many TikToks of girls getting in their
my girl be sending me those.
Yes, and so it is absolutely.
So let's talk about that though, because then if a guy is anxiously attached, he's called a simp.
Yeah.
He's called all these different names, get made fun of by his boys.
Yeah.
You know, like what would be some advice you would give to a guy with anxious attachment type? Or like even like for yourself, like, I don't know.
For a guy specifically with.
Is it different?
I think it can show up differently. I think that men will mask it, obviously, a lot of the time because of the things that their counterparts say about them and who they're not able to be vulnerable. So I think that if I had a guy, or I'm trying to think of if there's any guy friends in my life or anybody I know specifically that do struggle with anxious, all the guys that I know have had avoidant. Right. Actually, no, there's a guy.
Because avoidant is like more masculine, if you will. Like we don't have to talk about it.
I don't feel no way. I'm cool on her. Whatever. Okay, no, you're not.
Do girls like more of that avoidant, like more of that chase? You know, because if a guy is very just like more of that anxious type, it seems to me, you know, almost like it's like I'm not really interested.
I don't think it's black or white. I think it comes with having conversations and being able to sit down with your partner and be like, listen. Sometimes it seems, and it's also about language too. How are you delivering the message to your partner that they might be being clingy or they might be being anxious? Because if you're telling your partner, well, dang, you always want to be around me. You don't have no life of your own. Oh my goodness, you want to be in my skin? Like, go find some business. Wow. That is a completely different message than, babe, sometimes I feel smothered because I often have things to do that occupy me and bring me joy, but it seems that you don't have those things. Is there anything that you can think of that you want to experience, that you want to learn, nurture, to contribute to, or help you learn more about yourself? I love you. I do like being in a relationship. There's a piece of this that requires balance, and it's called differentiation. I need to be able to be me. You need to be able to be you. And live in your autonomy, and together we choose each other. Man,
that's a way better response. Like, how can somebody, you know, start to respond like that versus more of that reactive style, you know?
I statements, as we know, as therapists.
I was like, it sounds like an I statement.
It's
because then it's not simple. Personal. It's like, hey, this is an issue that I'm working on.
Absolutely. And acknowledging, I feel smothered. I want to make sure that you know you're important. I want to make sure that I'm meeting your needs. It sounds like you enjoy spending time with me, and I also enjoy the time we spend together. How can we make this beneficial and healthy for the both of us? It's completely different. I do an activity like with kids and like their parents, and we'll have like Uno cards, and like whoever says you got to put a card down on the floor. So then it forces you to have to focus on I. I like that.
So then like the kid, he'll have an Uno card, and then his mom will have an Uno card. And then I say, every time you hear your mom say you put that card on the floor. And then she'd be like, and then after, if you get too many, then it's the other person telling to talk.
Oh, wow.
You know, so then it's like, hey, you can only say you a certain amount of times. Because I've realized that's how a lot of arguments start.
Listen.
I had a professor who passed away years ago, but he said, if you want to have a discussion, say I. If you want to have an argument, say you.
I like that.
Yeah.
If you want to have a discussion, say I. If you want to have an argument, say you.
You never take the trash out. You never be having the house cleaned up when I get home. That sounds toxic as heck, right? Or it's like, I feel like I'd rather come to a house that's nice and clean. And I think we should work on this. Versus or even, you need to do that. And
it's the trash thing. That's funny. Why ain't this trash taken out? You did not take the trash out. As opposed to, how could you say that? I'm about to put that together. You never take the trash out. That's a very contemptuous statement. That's an attack.
Right. It's like, hey, like I need help with the trash.
Yes.
Because I like being in a clean space.
Yes.
And I feel like this is going to be best for all of us.
I also like a home free from bugs.
No roaches.
Yes.
Definitely. So Tell me a little bit about your childhood there, Gabby. Like, how did, because you said you're from Nebraska, came to Wichita ICT in 2015. But what was it like out in Nebraska, like growing up and everything? Like, how was that,
So I'm an only child. Both of my parents have other children. They're like 40, 50. And that whole dynamic was completely different because I didn't meet them until maybe like 8th, 7th grade. And have a relationship with them. I really don't. But I would say my childhood, I was one of the ones that was like, it was good. It was healthy. Right. I came from a 2-parent household. I didn't want for anything. And while all of that may be true, there were definitely some things that I didn't know impacted me as specifically in my 20s as a young adult woman. I think my relationship with my dad and my mom over the last couple of years, I think I've begun to include my mom in that too. But specifically, my dad, he worked 25/8. He was
blue collar.
Man, yes, he worked 25/8, and present and absent at the same time. Not coming to volleyball games, track meets, all of these things, and very much going to make up for that with money. Going to give me whatever, going to make up that way.
And it's fun when you're young, like a kid, like, oh, I get a new bike, get some shoes. But eventually you're like, man, I want
As I got older, I realized that, Brandy would have told me and has told me, my picker was off. My picker's broken. I was picking, and my mom, she would say, I think in a healthy household with secure attachments and things like that, when someone says you want to date a man like your dad, I think that is healthy and that has a different meaning. So she would tell me that growing up, you want to date somebody like your dad. I was doing that subconsciously and I didn't even realize, like,
isn't that crazy?
So once I got to grad school and I'm like, oh my God.
He's really, like, Dad,
listen, I'm dating men just like him. I don't want to, actually. I don't want to.
Why does the subconscious do that? What do you think it is? Because I've seen that happen to myself, to so many different clients. Like, is it just because maybe like you were saying about the neuroplasticity?
Yes.
Like, and just being comfortable?
Well, wanting to feel, so although he was present and absent in the same house, wanting to, my dad was born in the 50s, both of my parents were, wanting to feel loved and be shown that I'm loved, wanting to be told consistently that I'm loved. My mom did it. And so found myself with a broken picker, almost like trying to, in some weird way, force men to choose me, to know that I'm worth it. And it showed up. And when I was doing like my genogram is one of the interventions that I did in grad school, but doing my family mapping.
What number were you?
So it went 3 different generations, but as I did my genogram and like tracked the different multi-generational patterns and things, and we had to write a 15-page paper on it, I was like, oh my gosh. And I had to go back, and part of the assignment was to interview those 3 different generations and ask these really tough, icky questions. And I remember at the end of my dad's interview, he was like, can we just never bring this stuff up again? And I was like,
What was it that you think triggered him?
Asking him about him and my mom's relationship and why they split, and why he works so much, what stopped him from being actually present emotionally in my life. Why
do you think so many, like, well, not so many, but there are people who just workaholics? Where does that come from?
Looking back, and through EMDR therapy of my own, he was dealing with something way bigger, and he didn't have the skills to cope with it. He didn't know to even talk about it. Him and my mom didn't, looking back, they didn't have the conversation tools and the effectiveness to be able to sit and kind of have those model healthy communication. It wasn't until I actually heard my dad cry for the first time. It was a year ago. I had called him and I was like, hey, Daddy, what's up? Because I've really been working on sustaining and cultivating that relationship. And it's just been beautiful. And I was like, I hadn't heard from you, just checking in. How's Grandpa? And I asked that because he had been going back and forth taking care of his dad in Chicago.
For sure.
And he was like, honey, grandpa died a month ago. And I was like, huh? I got 2 issues with that. Because why didn't you call me?
Right.
And why did it take you a month? And then for 2, are you okay? Are you okay?
Because that's his biological father.
Yes. And after I took myself out of it and the selfishness of why didn't you call me? We had been texting. He was like, I've been really depressed. And he was like, I'm so sorry, baby. And I was like, Gabby, you're selfish. And he cried. He was like, I just haven't been able to get out of bed. And he just started speaking.
Man.
And I just wanted to hold, and I started crying. And I just wanted to hold space and be there for him in that moment. And it was actually that was like the second pivotal moment that we've had in our relationship. The first one was 2020, where I called him, and I was literally getting ready to wrap up my my graduate studies. Okay. And I was like, I haven't talked to my dad. I was really pursuing the Lord and knowing what the Lord is and that father figure, and then trying to make sense of my earthly father figure. Okay. I needed some answers. And I called him, and he was like, hello, hey, baby. And I was like, do you love me? Listen, like blurted it out. And he was like, huh? I said, do you love me? And he was like, of course. And we just went into this amazing conversation.
Wow.
And he was like, oh my goodness, you're the most important thing that ever has happened to me. And I'm so sorry that I made you feel that way. And I'm like, I just never heard it from you growing up. I never heard it. And that was these conversations and everything that I'm talking, again, I don't ask no one to do nothing I'm not willing to do.
There we go.
These kinds of conversations are what produce long-term change in relationship, in families, in individuals. These things people want to hide and run away from. And in our community, what happens in this house stays in this house. Well, I'm grown now. Right. So I'm absolutely speaking on these things, and I'm letting people know that if you do the work, and you have the conversations, you change your behaviors, you hold yourself accountable and let people know. People are not mind readers. Had I not called him and said that, he probably would have continued to think that everything was just okay.
How can people be able to be more assertive and ask those tough questions?
By picking up the pen and writing their own narrative. And what I mean by that is, when I didn't have that conversation for my dad, I don't have that conversation for my mom or for anything. Yeah. I have it for me because I'm authentic. If I feel some type of way and I don't say anything, I'm being disingenuous to who I really am. If I'm only having the conversation for them, I don't know how they're going to respond, interpret, or perceive what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm doing this so I can be free and release this burden from me. If it is burdensome, I want to know. So when you pick up the pen and you begin writing your own narrative, you are in charge of what you get to say to whomever. If my dad wrote my narrative, he could very much be like, my daughter called me and asked if I loved her, and I don't know why she would ask that, because she had a roof over her head every da-da-da-da. She got whatever she wanted. That's his narrative. That doesn't mean it's wrong. My narrative is, I called my dad and initiated a repair, and it started off kind of rocky, and it started off very emotionally dysregulated, and I also ended with nurturing words, affection, and freedom, most importantly. Absolutely. And I did that for myself. Right. As we know, it ran in the family until it ran into me.
But yeah, like back on that note, when you're talking about your dad, do you think it was safe to say that you might have had daddy issues?
I did. I think that I don't now. I think I also had a little bit of mommy issues. I have a really strong, responsible mom. And she stayed on me like white on rice. And she really helped mold me. And also she emotionally unavailable. Now she isn't. She is the most sweetest, calmest, nurturing woman. That's awesome. Being born in the 50s and also having a daughter, it ain't gonna work no more. So
yeah, you did say that she was born in the 50s.
Yeah, so
wow, 1950.
I remember she was born in 57. So having a daughter that is not gonna let nothing slide no more. I remember her asking me one day, she was like, "Are you sure you went into the right profession?"
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why did she say that?
We were talking about something, and I was like, "Can you please just not talk to me that way?" Or why does it have to be like this form of conversation? Or just let me. I think I was just asking her to just let me vent. I don't need nothing. I don't need no responses or solutions. I was like, just let me get it out.
Yeah.
Just let me get it out.
I was going to ask you too, because we talk about attachment styles, talk about boundaries. But when you're there with these couples, right? What are they missing? Because I feel like I made up something, and I'll show it to you later, but it's like, I feel like safety is like the foundation to every relationship. You know,
I agree.
safety,
I would agree.
Like, you know,
I straight agree.
Safe, especially for women, right? Safety 100%. So then emotional safety, right?
Yes.
Physical safety for sure.
Yes.
And then financial safety too.
Absolutely.
You can't just be not having no job.
Lit.
You know, especially if you're the man.
Listen, I think financial safety is absolutely a thing. And also being cognizant too, because of the think of the generation we live in as well.
Oh man, let's talk about that.
I think as a man, how do you differentiate financial safety? And I guess this doesn't apply to you directly because you have a partner. But how would one differentiate financial safety and being a provider, protector in a relationship versus somebody who's just giving their money away
like
to
a
these
sugar
women?
daddy? So you're asking what's the difference between providing? I would say with that, like if somebody's just like a sugar daddy and they're just giving money to sugar babies or whatever, I think there's not the attention element there. You know, there's not the time. There may not be the intimacy.
That part. It's when you're courting someone, I see all the time, you need to cash at me to get my nails done before we go on a date. Or you need to do this, or you need to do that. And that's a lot of pressure on the man. Like, why would I
don't even know you.
Listen. Because I think there is but I don't know how men would, like, how do you deal with, you don't have to deal with that, but I don't.
Well, when I hear, you know, if I was single, like when I was single and I hear women say that to me, I just kind of think like, man, like, you feel kind of used. You know, at least I do. I feel kind of used, you know? So it's like, all right, well, why do I need to do this? Especially if we're not in a relationship.
Listen, yeah. I'm
like, you know, I don't mind paying for things that we're doing together. Food, going out to dates, dinner, stuff like that. But if I'm just paying for your nails, I'm like, we're not even exclusive. What are we doing here? Yeah. You know, if we're exclusive, that's a different story. But you could be seeing somebody else. How do I know? You know, so it's just kind of, I would say it's just, like, I am curious to, like, what do you feel like nowadays, like in 2024, just like with the dating scene, it just seems
terrible is what it is.
That's what you would say? Yeah.
It's terrible. And there is no safety.
Right.
There's no transparency.
What do you mean by there's no safety?
I feel like it's a game. It's all a game. If you feeling somebody, it feels
like that, right?
I don't want to text too much, or let me not call too much. I don't want to be thirsty. I gotta play. What is it? The hard to get. There's no vulnerability, and all of this comes with. I watched a TikTok about dating 0 to 100 versus 100 to 0, and men usually date 0 to 100. So I've been trying to date like a man. As
date like a man. That's the new Steve Harvey book.
Yes. Listen, but in this TikTok, they were saying how men date 0 to 100 versus 100 to 0.
Oh, I know exactly what you're about to say.
With women,
okay,
you meet a woman and you tell her, you tell something, you and such are talking now, and then how do you like him? He's good. He cut my grass. He does this. He's so nice. He's sweet. He's charming. He's a gentleman.
You just met him.
Listen, 100 to 0, as opposed to a man. You ask a man, well, what's up with you and Shorty? Oh, she's cool. I'm still getting to know her. Like, we're just figuring things out, but she's cool though. 0 to 100. So as women, when we do that, you got him up here at 100, when in reality, he's probably like a 20 or a 30.
But let's be real. I feel like a lot of women they're not going to want to date that guy when it's like a 0 to 100, because like they're not really interested.
I think that
it could be a lot more healthier, you know?
I was just going to say, it just requires a different pace.
Exactly.
It requires a different pace. And there's also, to me, there's a difference between dating and dating exclusively and then being in a relationship.
Yeah, what's the difference?
So to me, dating is you're going on dates, you're being pursued.
Is it exclusive?
Being courted by multiple people.
Okay.
You're letting your people know, like, yes, I am going on dates, blah, 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 blah. Dating exclusively is more so, okay, I really like you. I'm actually interested in someone and I want to see where this goes. I'm going to not date other people. I'm just going to allow him to date, pursue me, court me, and spend my time with him while we get to know each other. Still going from that 0 to 100, and then being in a relationship, you ask me to be your woman.
Okay, I like that. See, I always said like talking, then dating, and then Facebook official.
Okay.
I call it Facebook official because it's really not. It's not official until it's like Facebook.
Yeah.
Or like until it's public, like digitally.
Yeah.
You know.
You think so?
I think so.
Really?
Think so. Absolutely. For our generation, absolutely.
Why?
Because if you don't upload a picture of your partner, or at least some kind of documentation online, I feel like there better be a good reason.
Yeah, you shouldn't be a secret. Yeah, you should be a secret.
Right, and you don't have to post them every day, but it has to be something on there because, you know, I have friends who, like, their partners may not post anything, and it's like kind of like, hey, are you embarrassed? Or are you talking to other people? Do you want people to think that you're single? You got the door open.
Ooh, that right there. That is whole.
You don't keep the door open when you do your sessions.
Listen, and don't.
So that's the exclusive. Like, hey, like other people out there waiting, you know, close the door.
Okay. I like how
Facebook
you
official.
just did that.
But it's really dating exclusively, but I call it Facebook official.
Okay. I mean, social media was always a big
it's weird, huh?
trigger in my relationships. So, and it's because of that, like, not being posted, and this was when I was on law. He was cheating. He was doing the most, and like,
man,
I don't need to be plastered up and down your page. And
so he got upset because you didn't post him?
No, he never ever posted me ever.
Oh dang! Why didn't he post you?
He was cheating. He was cheating actively.
How'd you deal with that?
Back then, how old was I? 18.
Oh, yeah.
I went through, now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of my early relationship years, I experienced way too much relational trauma way too early on, before my brain was even developed.
Wow.
I moved out here when I was 20. I had just turned 21.
Like 21 in 2015?
Uh-huh.
You're about like 2 years younger?
I'm 30, yeah.
Yep.
So I remember what was it? I went through, there was just a situation, like I remember walking in on him. It was so many things that happened, and I'm just looking back as they come like a flood. I went through so much so early on with relationships and relational trauma, all before my brain could fully develop. And I just also wonder the impact that has had on me.
Yeah.
Because it was a pattern from him with like the men that even came after. It was like the same type of man.
Was it because the picker was off?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I call it taste.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost like you have two people and they both go to Walmart. One person, they put Oreos and bacon and cereal and milk in their cart, donuts.
Okay.
And then the other person, they put like vegetables,
strawberries, organic, give me some fruit,
mangoes. And it's like they're in the same store. They're the same, kind of person, but they have different tastes. They have different awareness. One person is going for like instant gratification. The other person is actually thinking like, I'm trying to be healthy. Like, who cares about all these 100 to 0 kind of stuff?
And I just I don't even know what I was dating for back then. I swear I thought I was going to be with him for like ever. And I was like, there's no, I'll look back and I'm like, Gabby, what? And so.
Man, it's crazy because there's a lot of young ladies, like, might be a young lady right now tuning in, and she's in one of those relationships. Any advice? She's 21.
Where's my phone's over there. When they show you who they are the first time, believe them. And I was going to read a poem, but there's a poem. I would also tell her to look up the poem by Portia Nelson. There's a hole in my sidewalk.
Wow.
And it's a very powerful poem. And that poem shaped my entire relationship in my 20s. And it's like, chapter 1, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I fall in. It takes a long time to get out, but I get out, and it's not my fault. Chapter 2 is like, there's a hole in my sidewalk, or there's a hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I fall in. It takes forever to get out. I still get out, but it's still not my fault. Chapter 3 was like the life-changing chapter for me. Chapter 3 was like, there's a hole in my sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit, but I know where I am. I get myself out. It still takes me a long time, but I get myself out. Chapter 4 was, there's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5 was, I walk down another street.
Oh.
And that was like a summary of the poem.
Wow, I love that.
But chapter 3, there's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit.
Ooh.
I know where I am.
That's where people get stuck. Chapter 3.
I know where I know how I got here. It still takes forever to get out. Chapter 3 is where that young lady, whoever was watching at 21, if she's stuck there, I would encourage her to think about what would it take for her to how can we begin climbing out of the hole? What is going to be the first step that allows us to put our foot and our hand on that ladder to begin climbing out? Not worried about walking around the hole just yet, not worried about walking down another street.
Wow. With some of my clients, I showed them the clip from the Batman movie with Bane.
Okay.
Because he's literally in the hole. Remember that scene? And everybody, they're just stuck there. But he's like, nah, I'm about to get out.
Facts.
And he climbs, literally. And if you fall, you could die.
Yes.
But he's like, I'm not about to stay here.
Listen.
So I feel like some people.
One wrong move.
It's a wrap. But he's still, he knows who he is.
Absolutely.
You see?
He knows yes.
And Batman really doesn't have any superpowers. He just has his gadgets. So like that seems so powerful to me. And like it matches up with what you're saying, because it's like, I think some people get comfortable in the hole.
It's dark in there. You might have you might have created comfort in there. You got your blankets in there, your lava lamp. You got cozy clothes in there. You
said lava lamp.
Listen.
It's comfortable.
Yes.
And maybe even financially comfortable too.
Yes. It don't require much in the hole.
It's like, why? It's like, all right, Gabby, whatever. Like, this hole is actually not that bad. Why are you telling me to go to chapter 4 for?
Because I would be also curious to know that if you just began to walk around the hole and you never got back in there.
Well, I'm going to fall in another hole anyway. I don't know what you're talking about. Every street I go down, I'm falling in a hole. That's kind of the mindset, right? Somebody might say.
That's a very different.
My whole life I've seen people in holes, so I might as well just pick one.
That's your whole life. You've seen people in holes. However, what experience do you have outside of you being like, if this is the one time that you were in a hole per se, what experience do you have with consistently falling into holes? Or is there factual evidence that shows that you can walk around them and be resilient and pursue a different path?
Man, that's powerful. So chapter 1 is kind of just like an accident. Chapter 2 is kind of like, all right,
you still not your fault. You in there though. You still get out.
Chapter 3 is like, that's on you.
Now listen, because how did we get back here?
Right. This is kind of your choice at this point.
It's a habit.
You're choosing this. And then chapter 4.
I walk around the hole.
Walk around it.
Even you can peek in there. You still ain't in there. You walking around.
So you like going on a date with somebody, you see it, you see the red flags, you're like, okay, all right, I'm going this way.
And the difference is if you go on a date and you see or notice the red flags and you continue to entertain or you continue to pursue thinking with women a lot of times, oh, he'll change, or he whatever. He has potential.
Oh, can we talk about codependency? Because that's what that sounds like. And I think so many people, including myself, right, at one point get codependency confused. And so maybe like, how would you define this, to somebody who's tuning in who might be in a codependent relationship?
You have no identity, no secure sense of self outside of your interpersonal relationships. I would say even in friendships, you can be codependent.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Nobody really talks about that. Nobody really talks about codependent friendships. What?
It's a lot. It's a burden.
Codependent parenting.
That reminds me of like helicopter.
Yeah.
And then I also think about codependent mother-daughter relationships, father and son. Like
Son husbands.
Yes.
Son husbands is a real thing.
Sonsmans. My friend
Sonsmans.
gave me that sonsmans. Yep.
That's a real thing, especially in our community.
That's what. That literally.
I had one client, like he got like a full ride to a university out of state. His mom trying to get mad at him because he want to go. I sat that mom down. I was like, "Are you serious? You telling me that he got a full ride? And you want him to go to WSU?"
No. What did?
And she rationalization.
No.
Well, he just going out there because that girl. Yeah.
Let's say he was going out there for that girl. Does he not get the chance and the space and the opportunity to pursue something that he might see long term? Is that okay?
She wasn't ready because I was like, I see what's going on. You just got out of this relationship. You realize if he goes out here out of state, you about to be in this house by yourself.
How did she take that?
Oh man, she got defensive. So I knew something I said was right. That's how I know I said something right, because it's like, hey, and then her son, he was just like, yeah, that's what it is. Man,
I hope he goes.
Tough.
I really hope he goes.
Man, he did.
Good.
He did, man, but it was tough.
I believe it.
It was tough.
But that kind of stuff.
Because she tried to shame him, guilt him for. It's just it was.
That produces the second order change. Hopefully she can. Those kinds of, again, the stuff nobody wants to talk about. She wants him to stay
kind of in the hole a little bit.
Yes.
Even though it was a healthy relationship, but then again, was it? It wasn't abusive, but it was just very smothering.
Absolutely.
He can't live his own life now. He got a new girl. He wasn't dating you.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that Tyler Perry movie, The Family
Divorce in Black?
No, I've seen that one too. The Family That Prays is the one. Remember when the secrets, and in the movie, there's a mom who has that kind of sonsman relationship with her son. He's getting ready to get married. And because she couldn't adjust, she spilled the whole family secret.
I remember this. Yes. The business.
Yes.
Yeah.
She spilled the family secret, and
he finally a man in this.
Yes.
Dang, yeah.
Or no, was that no, that wasn't The Family That Prayed. I am completely
I think you're right.
Jumping the Broom. Have you seen Jumping the Broom?
I've seen that one too.
Okay, but The Family That Prays is kind of
Yeah, that's yes. See, I was thinking when we talked about like the codependent parenting, the Tyler Perry movie with the actor that played Mike Tyson in the new Mike Tyson series, Kelly Rowland. She's the main character. I can't think of the name.
Mea Culpa. Was that?
Yes, that's the name of that.
On Netflix.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I liked it.
Remember because her husband, the mom tried to say, "Oh, there's cancer, so you need to come over here," but then you see really what was going on, which is really crazy.
Yep,
good movie.
That movie was just a complete. There was so much triangulation.
Did you see it coming when you watched that movie?
No,
because I knew something was weird with that politician guy. I was like, man,
absolutely.
I was like, something's off.
All these different examples of codependency, enmeshment.
Yes.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's super crazy. And like, they're not like, I think some people get confused because I had one client, he was like, well, this is not in the DSM. Because he was like very, intellectualization, right? Intellectualization. And I was like, well, just because you have this attachment style, it's not necessarily a disorder, but do you think that it could come down to one? Like codependency could be, do you think that should be a disorder? Or dependent personality disorder, I guess that's what it would be, right?
Yes, I definitely.
Yeah.
The way it shows up, yes.
It's the need to be needed, I call it.
Listen, and
need to
that
be needed.
Is what, that right there, I said that yesterday to somebody on the phone, and I was like, ooh, because of, that's exactly what contributed to that whole like, span of problematic relationships that I had.
Because there's this one young girl, she just aged out of the foster care like 3 years ago, but she said she feels inadequate when she dates stable men because they don't need her
for nothing.
And I was like, well, that's good.
She got to find other ways to bring her self-worth.
She attracts a lot of boys.
Man-children.
Man-children. Let's talk about
it. Man-child. Oh, man.
Why do women want to stay in relationships with man-child?
I think it's safe. I think it's comfortable.
It's safe, you're right.
I think the need to be needed.
How'd you get out of your situation? When you dated a possible man-child? All due respect to whoever it was.
A lot of boundary setting.
A lot of boundaries, yeah.
A lot of boundary setting. A lot of accountability. A lot of difficult, tough conversations.
Right.
A lot of being real, honestly. I think that there are ways to deliver messages and things like that. And also calling things out as I see them. I think that when it's happening or when I see a pattern or I see it showing up a certain way, I call it out. Like, for example, I remember one time being in the car and he got a phone call from his mom and she was saying this, and that, and how he should handle a certain situation and to be nice and to just not say anything or something of the sort. And he got off the phone and I was like, it just like, aha, it hit me. And I was like, oh my goodness, what do you think about this? And then I was like, I started speaking it out, like multi-generational process. I was like, it sounds like because she has not had the ability to have her own voice and her own stability and structure, and she's always been connected to your dad, she's had to sit and be mute for a lot of different things and didn't have the ability to really advocate.
She didn't have a voice.
He didn't either. And I said, and it sounds like through that conversation from what I just heard, she was telling you to do the same thing. And he was like, I literally never thought of it like that. Wow. And I was like, oh my gosh, we got to stop it. Like, I took a step back because we didn't have to stop anything. But now that you know that information, what can you do with it? How can you do something different?
It's crazy. Do you feel like you find it hard to date as a therapist?
Yes.
You know, like I would, like when I was single, I would hate telling people that I'm a therapist because then people get anxious.
I don't even say it no more. I say I'm in the mental health field. I work in the mental health field.
There we go. Yeah, smart.
Mm-hmm. I refuse.
But when they find out, like when you slip up and say, oh, I had this client today or something.
What do you do? Yep.
Caseworker. Mm-hmm. Just like I'm a case.
Or then when you say I'm a therapist and they go physical or massage or something of the sort. Mm-hmm. No, mental health. So.
Man, so what is that like there? Like, is it helpful at times or do you feel like it can be more detrimental, you know, because now people make judgment or maybe now like I found myself like always in my head, you know, like just thinking like, all right. Trying to turn that part off. I
definitely do try to turn that part off. But with my program, I remember them saying at Friends, we were getting ready to go through a transformative journey. And I went through just that. There is no turning that piece off because it's embedded in who I am because I too once operated from a lens of brokenness. I also swept things under the rug and was emotionally unavailable or whatever the case is. But because I went through this journey and I know now, I can't just going back to sweeping things under the rug isn't really an option. I might delay when I speak about them or things like that, but just completely forgetting them. But now I have rules that provide me safety when it comes to, I'm not going to sweep it under the rug, but I'm going to say, let's take 24 hours and come back to this tomorrow at 3. Meet me at my house or meet me at the park, whatever the case is. There's rules, there's things that I have in place to allow me to do something different. But dating as a therapist, I was actually on a TikTok live yesterday with one of my exes, and he took accountability and he brought me on there.
Is that something you do? Is that like a show you do?
No.
TikTok live with Gabby?
No. And he does it. And so I remember he had texted me and was like, can you pop in my live for a second? I'm talking about you. And I was like, no, I can't. I'm blocked. And so he did that back in February because whatever the case is. But he ended up unblocking me. I got in the live and he was telling his live, there was like 300 some people in there, between 250 and 300. And he was like, well, yeah, this is Gabby and blah, 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 blah. She's a therapist. And I'm like, And so he was like, he just started telling his live what he did and why we ended, and he took accountability and apologized in front of like all of social, and I appreciated that.
That's big of him. And it wasn't like no toxic, like no Kevin Samuels stuff.
No, it wasn't. But I realized, so he was like, and she's a therapist, so sometimes they think that he was like, she was trying to force me to go to therapy, and I was like, no force, or just drop a little gem here and there. But I was just looking at some of the comments that people were saying. Sometimes therapists need therapy, and sounds like Miss Gabby, da-da-da-da. And I'm like, one, I could never work on social media because I would crash out. I'm too, like, just seeing what they're saying, and these are strangers. Gosh. I was on there for 30 minutes, and y'all
just saying,
you don't know me. But I say all that to say that was one of the things that he was like, quit trying to therapize me. And I'm like, I'm literally not trying to. I'm just trying to teach you. And I'm not even trying to teach you. I'm trying to show and model what it's like to operate from a healthier lens. And I say, I ain't perfect. So we are human too. So, but if you do these little things, if we just start slowly implementing these little nuggets, I statements, feeling statements, I stop my clients and myself when I say, I feel like, no, I feel, insert an emotion. I feel embarrassed, insecure.
So do you feel like it's just more of like people's own feelings of not feeling inadequate? And when they say things like that, oh, therapy, you need therapy. I remember even like, I won't say their name, but it was at St. Francis, like, because I was at St. Francis because I couldn't pass the test. So eventually when I passed the test, I'm like, hey, I'm out. But I remember somebody there on my team, they're like, well, Chris, like, how you going to be a therapist? You know, you got your own stuff too, right? And I'm just like.
And do?
I'm like, everybody else do too, right?
Absolutely.
You know, I'm working through it just like everybody else.
And I'm aware of any countertransference that
What's that defense mechanism you think that might be? Like, what is that when people say statements like that, or even like you might have a client. I remember one time, like, well, you know, well, I have a psychology degree, or I took some psychology classes. Like, you know, those clients that would
try a negative core belief.
Yeah.
And I feel like it could be I'm invaluable, or it could show up as I'm flawed, or I think it could also show up as I'm unworthy.
Yeah, incapable.
And I'm incapable. All of those things, because yes, you did take psychology classes and things like that. No one's taking, but also, why was that information helpful? I wasn't coming off as Miss Know-It-All, Mr. Know-It-All.
Right. But just because your presence and who you are, now it makes them feel like, dang, I'm not doing much, or whatever it is. Not even just
that's
like with clients,
thing,
but yeah, just like people in general. Like, I remember you said one time, you said the only thing you're going to take from me is notes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's a bar.
Yes.
Oh, that's fire.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Who's taking notes?
Everybody. And I'll take notes.
Yeah.
They'll be from Brandy. They'll be from other colleagues.
For sure.
Because I'm absolutely not a know-it-all, and we're lifelong learners. So
for sure.
I hope everyone, my clients most importantly, are taking the notes. But I stand on and I live by, you know, there's not one person who enters my life and will ever leave the same. You will never leave the same once you enter my life. And if you exit, you're going to leave with something. You're going to leave a better version of you, because that's just who I am and what I exude. And it's going to rub off. Everything attached to me wins. You know, when I was starting my business and getting into my office and getting moved, I listened to that song by Jacqueline Carr. You will win, like every single day. And I live by that. Everything I touch, every body, every person that is attached to me will win. And they get to define their wins. And you're also going to know and see the difference. That's awesome. How I feel about my friend. I feel like my friend Ronisha,
Yes. It was something I remember you said on the episode we did with Big Sam. You said Ronisha told you don't have to, what was it? Let me see if I can remember this. You said you don't have to know every part of somebody's story to be able to have empathy and connect with them, right?
Ronisha, she would say somebody shouldn't have to expose every part of what they're going through or their story.
That's what it was.
For you to offer grace and to offer love. That
stuck
kindness.
with me after that. I was like, that's a bar.
Yeah. Because why do I have to tell you that I'm finna be homeless? I don't got no insurance. I just got my car repoed, for you to then offer love and kindness. Like,
How would that work in a relationship though? Imagine if somebody with avoidant attachment, they're like saying what Ronisha said as a way to rationalize why they don't have to talk about how they feel.
I think,
because I could easily see like a guy or even a lady in a relationship saying something like that. Well, why do I need to talk about all this stuff? Like, you should just.
You should just what? Is how I would.
Yeah, I know that. You should just know.
I should just know. Also, how can I support you? So if you don't, and I'm not saying you got to tell me your life story. I'm not saying you got to give me the details. Is there something that you can share with me so that I am aware of how to support you?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
How to be there for you, how to help you. I mean, like I tell my clients, if you are trying to do life with somebody, if you're literally trying to do life with this person and you can't be vulnerable with them, who can you be vulnerable with then? You lay next to them every single night.
Man, that's real. They don't want to be vulnerable, especially if it's in art, as men, like woundability. That's what vulnerability is. So agree. It's like, you got this wound. Why am I about to let you come close over here?
Why would I? And I would say, and I would challenge that with, well, why wouldn't you? If you have this wound right here and it needs to be tended to, why wouldn't you want me to come and clean it out and put peroxide on it?
Don't trust.
And put Neosporin on it and put a Band-Aid on it. And if with the trust, absolutely. So then I would respond with, then why are we sleeping in the same bed every night?
Right.
Huh.
Right.
Why do you have a key? This is where you draw the line? I'm really curious.
There was a lady I was talking to, and she pretty much, opened up and talked about how she just doesn't trust men, like just men altogether, not any particular race, but just men altogether. And I'm just like, okay, well, thanks for telling me, but like, how is this going to work exactly?
Right.
Because if you don't trust men, and we just met 3 months ago.
Right. What are we doing respectfully?
Yeah. Like, how is it going to work? You talk about you can't trust people you've been knowing 14 plus years. How can I expect you're going to trust me in the next 3 months?
Absolutely. What was her response?
Man.
If you
said that's something that I have to work on. I was like, yeah, that is, but we ain't about to keep like talking, like, because then it's just a dead end road, right?
Absolutely.
But it's just kind of like, but then like a month later, she tells me she's moving in with some guy, and I'm just like, man, like, how are you going to be able to trust? Like, I'm so confused.
It's first order change. Those are temporary surface level changes that aren't going to be
Why do people don't want to be alone? And like, do you feel like we are happier with people? Like, because people say, well, I'm just by myself. I don't need anybody. I don't need a man. I don't need a woman. Like, do you think that we are naturally more happier in relationships?
Yes. I think even we're called to be in relationship. If I just bring my Bible into this, we're called to be in healthy relationship and in community and in communion with others. Because
I feel like some people just rationalize, I'm working on myself, but because they just don't have any options to be in a relationship.
But can you, does it have to be one or the other? Can you be working on yourself and still make room or have room should someone enter your life? Self-love is not a replacement for romantic love or community.
Right.
Everyone needs some form of love, and just it's almost like when I be on Twitter and work on yourself, work on self-love. Listen, I love myself and I'm working on myself, and I still want a partner. I still want a husband. I still want these things. It's not black or white.
Right. I feel like, I always said this, I feel like self-discipline is greater than self-love. Because if you can't be self-disciplined, because self-discipline is like the dark side of self-love. Self-love is kind of like the easy part. Bubble baths, spa day, getting a massage.
Discipline is getting up at 6 a.m.
Going to the gym.
Eating healthy, making a smoothie when you want a Whopper or a quarter pounder or something. Like,
and that's still love. It's not too hard on you, but it's like, hey, I discipline myself. I love myself, right? And so then, I don't know, like, I do feel like sometimes it's like, the self-love, I'm self-love, it feels like almost like it's like overly like positive. And then it can kind of be toxic.
Yes, I agree.
Because you're ignoring like the other part.
Yes, you are. Like, self-love is
just only thinking positive thoughts.
Yes, and all of that. You can definitely take a bubble bath and do all of the things, and also want to go out and go on a walk with a person and hold hands and be hugged at night and be told that you're important and that you're valued by somebody who also is committed to loving you in the way that you're loving yourself.
Wow, man. Well, Gabby, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Like, we could go on for another 2 hours.
Listen, thank you for having me. This was so good.
Absolutely. We could go for another 2 hours. You definitely got to come back on the show. But if somebody's watching it and they want to book a session with you, how can they connect with you?
Connect with me on TikTok at Millennial Black Therapist. Connect with me on Instagram at Healing and Harmony Therapy, Facebook Healing and Harmony Therapy, and last but not least, www.healingandharmonytherapy.com.
Awesome, man. So, I really feel like, you speak very well. You're able to articulate yourself very well. You're able to make sense out of these topics that some people may not able to understand. And I just really hope the best for you and hope you'll be able to pass that test. But even if, one thing that got me through it, I heard somebody said, again just means a gain. So you're gaining. Mm-hmm. You're gaining each time. That. You see, so I really needed to hear that. Yeah. To be able to pass.
Yes, I'm gaining more knowledge.
You're gaining.
Should I? Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with gaining. Okay. Especially when it's something that's going to be beneficial.
Absolutely.
You feel me? So best of luck to that.
Thank you.
Use the additional time that you got with the accommodations. Eat the fruit. Maybe go for a walk if you can.
Yes, I am. And that's how my study platform has me set up to study. You eating fruit while I study, so my brain has that muscle memory, and it also activates certain kind of vitamins and supplements I was reading to help me kind of like energize and like activate that brain power. Absolutely. So you guys make sure you guys follow Gabby on all social media platforms. All right. If you guys have been tuning in this far, make sure you hit that. Matter of fact, smash that subscribe button. Share this video with somebody, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Fully Connected Podcast. Peace.